Silas, hey, congratulations. Well, the film's been out for quite some time, Darby of the Dead, but congratulations for Darby of the Dead being featured at Queer Rhapsody this year.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really excited. It's my first studio film, and it was a great experience. And I'm really so honored that it's playing in this series. It's for me, yeah, really means a lot.
Tell us the meaning behind when you found out the being selected for Queer Rhapsody that's going to be showcased at in Los Angeles at Vidiots.
Yes,
Yeah.
I mean it's one of my favorite movie theaters. It's very community based. You go, they play only kind of classic movies in their big theater, so it's also an honor to have my not as it's a very recent film. But I've seen Harold and Maude and The Craft and The Hunger and Speed, like any there, it's always packed, and it's a great intergenerational crowd that it just feels like a really, especially post COVID, it feels really exciting to go see movies there. It's a really nice vibe.
Absolutely. I've been there a few times myself. So let's start with Darby of the Dead itself. You mentioned it's your first feature film. So how did that actually came about for you, and what initially drew you to that as your first major studio film?
Right, yeah, it's my fourth feature, but first studio.
Yeah.
And it was brought to me by the producer, Adam Saunders, and he was really patient. He sent it to me and waited. It took me a while to read it. I had a great original draft from the first writer, and then I worked on it with him for a couple of years. We hired a couple other writers, and Becca Green brought it home for us. And we pitched it to some places. Got some passes, and then we got interest from Hulu and 20th Century and another company. And so that was great because they were, in competition, and all of a sudden they gave us it was, I have to say, having not done a studio movie and having done three independent ones, I was ready for my soul to be crushed. And just hearing the stories you hear about studio features, not the experience I had. I was felt very supported. They were really passionate about the project, both of the executives I worked closely with, and gave us a great budget. And yeah, I was like, it was really a nice surprise. Yeah, that it went so well. And so yeah, I look forward to doing another one.
You know what? I enjoyed the movie. In fact, I actually watched it when it first came out on Hulu a while back, and it's a great coming of age story. So when you got a project like this, how did you want to basically stamp your signature onto a project like this?
Yeah, I think one of the things my work often revolves around is the transformative power of friendships, really. Like my first feature, it was a lot about these outsider characters that were friends, and the one character wanted to do these grand gestures, but really being a hero to the person next to them was a bigger task and a bigger deal. And Darby and the Dead is comedy about death, which I also find I love comedy and drama in the same scene. And I feel like we don't talk about dealing with loss very much, and comedy is a great way to do it. And it's really a friendship. It's really about this young female friendship that is at the core of it. And so, and it looks at, she has a very traumatic thing in her childhood, but she gets these gifts. And I think we often talk about trauma, or I know, like, as a trans person, our stories are often told in trauma, but really there's gifts that you get from surviving trauma, which are, empathy and sort of understanding other, you can read a room. There's just, so I like that Darby also gets, certain gifts from the loss that she has early on.
Was it difficult for you to balance, the sort of the serious subjects with the drama and comedy into something like this?
Yeah, yeah, it was a movie where I was like, I have to get a chuckle at the funeral and a laugh at the electrocution scenes. It's like a kind of, and then I wanted it to be a heart tug moment, by the end. And I feel like it hit those pretty well. And I think that's what the payoff is like you can have this relationship to this character dying, but it's because there's a bit more emotional commitment by the end of it. It's not taking it lightly, but it's sort of looking at in a way this metaphor, of death can also be a metaphor of like moving on, or whatever kind of transition happens.
So true, so true. Now I'm going to refocus back to Queer Rhapsody, which is basically they're honoring this film because it had, being a LGBTQ film. For myself, when I first watch it, years ago, I watch it for the enjoyment. Usually when I watch films, I don't really think about this kind of stuff. A film is a film to me. But tell us in your words, why you think Queer Rhapsody is actually honoring Darby of the Dead itself and yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I really, it means so much to me actually, because as a queer trans director who's done a lot of work in the independent world, it's a big deal to helm a teen genre, comedy. It's yeah, to be able to, and I think the lens that I've brought to it is just a lot of trying to flip all the tropes that we could, take out any tropes that just seem like redundant, and any body shaming things. And we really, even the glow up with Darby, it was a lot of intention with her, the way her hair went from straight to natural, and a lot of conversations that I had with cast to make sure things felt authentic and fresh. And I think, and then Nicole Maine plays one of the mean girl best friends, and she's trans, and her character was specifically queer, and she's kind of in love with the lead, and she's really just hilarious, her one-liners. But she and I talked about like, oh, is her character out? And we were shooting a scene in the women's locker room, and she was like, well, it's a little hard to resist, not having a line drop in that scenario. So she improved, and it's just so great. It's just one line, and it's really funny. And I love that, like, community loves it, but also people outside of the community, like my sound mix or whatever, just appreciated that kind of light touch and funny, and it kind of lets everybody in on it. Yeah.
Yeah, that is actually true. I've spoken to Nicole in the past, and wonderful actress, herself,
She's so great.
and I do like the fact that you put these scenes in here, and it's not, without thinking about it, it's not really like shouting at us. Everyone's a normal person in it.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, they don't have to, yeah, be their talking points the whole time. And I like that the love interests are really secondary. Like, it's really about the female friendship more than it is the love interest is sort of a byproduct of other things. Yeah.
Now
So that's
tell
maybe kind of queer.
tell us about your experiences as a member of the LGBTQ in this industry, as a trans person in this industry. How is your experience, and do you see it changing significantly towards your direction?
I mean, yeah, I have to say, in my lifetime, I've seen such incredible. I mean, I never thought being trans would help me break into TV, but it did with Transparent, because they had a interest in having representation behind the camera as well as in front of the camera, which makes a big difference. And I was a EP on a film called Mutt that was at Sundance, and they were in competition and they got this award. And I had my first film was at Sundance 22, 23 years ago, and we had a great experience, but it was a very different world. We couldn't get the language out. People were struggling to understand, but they responded to the movie. But it's just nice to see, like, this project that I'm helping out has such a wider path that it can take, and more visibility, and it's pretty exciting. I mean, I know that it's always a bit of a, it's an ebb and flow in this industry. It goes, forwards and backwards. But I was just saying, looking at some of the shows that I've worked on that just have queerness, even yeah, Dickinson, which I did for Apple, it really focused on Emily being in love with her brother's wife, and all of this, that kind of a core thing. So I love it because the kids are very queer these days. So I'm glad that everybody else is catching up with them.
So with your experiences, how does that shape your directing style?
Yeah, I always would. I taught film for a while, and one of the things that I would say, and I believe is true, is filmmaking is a lot about our cumulative lived experiences. So where we put a camera, the kind of questions we ask an actor, the lens that we see. Like as a trans person, when I transitioned, I was like, oh, wow, there's a whole world in this of like cis men that I had no idea. Like they love like straight guys love each other more than any gay guys I ever knew. And but just kind of everybody's a little bit performing themselves. So it's a lens on our society that's kind of interesting. And I try to bring some of that humor um and just sort of perspective in the work that I do.
Do you enjoy doing a lot of television? Because checked out your filmography and it's a lot of television episodes and it's great. You have a great resume itself.
Thank you. Yeah, I just got back from New Orleans doing a Netflix show that's based on a memoir about a young gay man going into the Marines under Don't Ask, Don't Tell, which is an era I remember well as a young person. So I feel excited that I get to work on all these shows that happen to be focused on there's they're characters that happen to be LGBTQ, but they're not. That's not the whole point of the story. It's a so yeah. I feel like I've been very lucky to get to do a lot of TV, and yeah, and a lot of really interesting and odd shows as well, which I feel very fortunate. But yeah, movies are a little bit harder to get up into production, but TV, yeah, it's been a great experience so far.
Now, typically, I like to avoid politics, but sometimes you know, in the face of this world, politics come upon us. How do you navigate, storytelling, LGBTQ story, especially trans storytelling, especially in the how the world is revolving today, especially this year?
Yeah, no, it's God, it's just gonna be brutal because it's just we're just used as to rev up the sort of ultra conservatives, and it's a little bit tiring. It feels like it's on its last gasp. It doesn't feel like it's the majority of people, but it is a little intense. And I feel like I don't know. I think the one an amazing thing for me is has been able to tell these stories on a wider platform. Indie movies only go so far, so TV reaches a lot of people, and um, yeah, I think it's just so important that, and it seems like we're just going more and more in the direction of fully rendered people. So again, there are people that happen to be X, Y, and Z, but they're not talking points. And there's like with Pose, there was 5 trans women of color in that show. So they had relationships, and we learn about characters by their relationships. And so if its show has just a tokened, you know, character, they don't get to be in that relationship. And so I think all of that is the evolution is bringing people more into, I grew up watching movies and TV shows that had nothing to do with me, and they were just beautifully told stories that were about the human experience, and I loved them. And I think that math works every direction. Yeah.
Great, great, great. And being a fan of Darby of the Dead itself, and I know it's a while back and it probably never happened. Was there a consideration for a possible sequel to this film?
Yes, yes. Chosen, who plays the love interest. He was always pitching the like sequel. Yeah, we never got into it too much, but there was definitely the thought of it just because it was such a nice the ending was sort of invited that. Yeah. 20th century in Hulu.
That's right. We should actually message that out. No, that most definitely.
Exactly.
Well, Silas, I've taken a lot of your time already, but could you tell us what you're working on next? Are you back in the indie or TV realm, or are you trying to line up that next studio project, hopefully?
I think probably all things, all of the above, but I just am editing right now the show that I just did for Netflix. And I have a feature that's not necessarily studio film, but it's about my last 6 months with my dad. you know, and his dying, and also my early in my transition. And it's not as sad as it sounds. It's definitely sad, but there's a lot of humor in it. And so I'm writing that with my wife, who's an amazing filmmaker and writer. And then we're gonna go out for casting. So I'm excited about that.
Well, we're excited for you too. So, Silas, thank you very much. Enjoy Queer Rhapsody. Thank you very much for carrying this conversation with us.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate it.